Good evening and a very warm welcome to your evening news bulletin on Television Tonga. Making headlines, business, land and water acts are some of the laws that the people of Kolomotua requested to be reviewed by the government. Honourable Minister of Police, Prison and Fire Services opened cadet fire officer training this morning. And it is important for the Ministry of Education and niche training for students to plant vegetable gardens. These and more stories together with the latest in sports and the weather forecast later on in this bulletin. I'm Fatai Whenga'a with your news for tonight. There's hope that the establishment of the new bank, known as the Pacific International Commercial Bank, will help reduce the interest rates of commercial banks, which brought up for lenders. This comes after one of the bank's directors, Isake Tuyono, revealed that the new bank's interest rate for its loans will not exceed 6%. The new bank will be called the Pacific International Commercial Bank and will operate at the Lomaile Lodge. The shareholders for the new bank includes the well-known Chinese businessman Mr. Hu, Her Royal Highness Princess Pilolevatuita. The other directors in the bank's board of directors are Mishka Tuifua and Isake Tuyono. Mr. Tuyono says the establishment of the new bank will help Tonga. At present, these are two ways, which is the 4%, and the other issue is 8%. But if the interest rate totals to 6%, then it can be done, because there are different categories for this loan, which includes huge amount of loan, and the average for the interest rates should stay at 6%, for example, personal loans. Meanwhile, there's another reason behind the establishment of this financial institution, according to information from Isake. The meeting in Nuku'alofa was attended by the chairman of the board of directors, Tian Hu. He was questioned on the reason why his father, the major shareholder, wanted to invest in Tonga, and he says this is his father's will after a request from Her Royal Highness Princess Pilolevatuita to establish a new bank in Tonga. This aimed at assisting the locals and banking services to further boost Tonga's economy. The major shareholder is a Chinese millionaire. Isake says the new bank believes they will introduce new investors from international markets to Tonga. The bank will start its operation in Tonga in 6 months' time. New Zealand has withheld its tourism aid to Tonga due to concerns over the new MH-60 aircraft gifted to the Kingdom of Tonga from China. This is according to TVNZ News.
Radio and Television Tonga News understands that millions of pa'anga has been suspended due to the withdrawal of the Jetham's Pacific airline from its operations in Tonga earlier this year. However, New Zealand has suspended its aid given the condition for the Tongan government to accept prior to the aid to be presented. One of the conditions required from New Zealand was the Jetham's Pacific airline to operate as the domestic air carrier. Since there was no outcome or result from previous meeting between Tongan delegations with the New Zealand Minister of Foreign Affairs, Murray Macaulay, earlier this year, the Tourism Aid Fund is still held back by New Zealand. Meanwhile, Government of Tonga has clarified that the New Zealand airline left the kingdom without the government's influence. In a previous interview with the general manager of the airline at the time, Noah Gillespie, he told Radio and Television Tonga News that the airline cannot compete with another airline in Tonga. However, the Deputy Prime Minister, Honourable Sami Vaipulu, in an exclusive with Radio and Television Tonga News, emphasised that competitions in the market will provide benefit for the people as airfare rates will be cheaper. For Television Tonga News, I'm Kalo Lainetong Lava.
Tonga's Business, Land and Water Acts are some of the laws that the people of Kolomotua requested for the government to be reviewed during last night's parliamentary visit of the representative of Tongatapu No. 1 to the House, Akilisipo Hiva, to his constituency in Kolomotua. These issues were raised during a gathering at the Holanga Hall in Kolomotua. In regards to the request to review Tonga's Business Act, concern was based on the need to enforce health inspection of all businesses in Tonga and to restrict settlement of families inside the retail shops, which is practiced by many Asian businesses. This is due to concern over the health of consumers. On the same issue, a businessman says that Tonga should amend its Business Act to coincide with Samoa's Business Act, which requires all business owners applying for a license in Samoa to reside in a country for more than 20 years before offering their license. In the meantime, Kolomotua Town Officer Sio Tuyano says the Health Ministry and other related stakeholders should work together to enforce a healthy environment for the businesses. Other issues were raised in regards of managing the neglected allotments in the town areas, where another resident says that it should be given to relatives of the owner for them to keep and to stay on that particular land for the time being, as they are the taxpayers. However, other issues raised includes foreign markets for the local products, where one resident says that the government should approach smaller markets and that local farmers can meet their demands instead of looking for larger markets that demanded more than what the local farmers can export. However, Toantapu number 1 representative says that all the issue of concerns have been recorded and will be submitted to the House, and the rest will be discussed by Kolomotua Town Council. In the meantime, he highlights that the implementation of these works is very much depending on the government's revenue. Meanwhile, the people of Nukunuku last night raised their concerns over high tax, requesting a decrease. This was during the Ontapo constituency 5 representative to Parliament, Isaac Eke's parliamentary visit to Nukunuku last night. More than 20 residents attended last night's parliamentary visit and raised concerns on tax hike. They were also concerned over the large amount of money allocated to upgrade their water supply with no satisfactory outcomes. This is because water in the village continues to be inconsistent and sometimes out of service 5 times a day. During the program, Mr. Ike spoke more of the assistance from government towards each constituencies, aiming at developing projects in each village. I support the idea of the Prime Minister to be elected by the people. This is because I believe that to be accountable and transparent, the people need to take part in electing their leaders. I suggest that English subject must be taught starting on Class 1 rather than in Class 4. The Ministry of Education should review this issue as it will benefit the children. The government should allow women to make loan in a low interest rate. This is because the commercial banks and other microfinance organizations have implied higher interest rates on its loan. Meanwhile, Town Officer of Matafonua requested whether if they can build a foreshore to combat soil erosion in the Western District. He told the gathering that impacts on climate change causes erosion to 2 acres of land in the area. The Honourable Minister of Police, Prisons and Fire Services, Sasifatu Tafaiva, has officially marked the beginning of the cadet training course for fire officers. Free fire officers are partaking in this training whom they have higher qualifications. Linda Filiai reports.
These are firemen that have begun the first cadet fire officer training in the Fire Services Department. The Fire Commissioner Lofia Heimuli is facilitating this course and assisted by Senior Fire Officer in the Fire Department. In a remark from the Minister of Police, Prison and Fire Services, he praised the high standard of performance delivered by fire officers in collecting their information. At present, the government and the people had their trust on all the fire officers to carry out their duties accordingly. I understand that everyone knows how difficult the roles that you have had because of the possibility that you may not survive. He added he had witnesses how hard the fire officers have served, especially in time of 16/11 riots in 2006. He also appreciated the past development plan drafted by the former superintendent of Tonga Fire Services. Today we witness the improvement of the services provided by Fire Department. The work that I have carried out is just a follow-up from the initial plan implemented by the former superintendent of Fire Services while he was still on duty. The Tonga Fire Services was established in 1978 with only 12 fire officers. At present, there are more than 100 fire officers currently serving in this department. For Television Tonga News, I'm Linda Filiai.
The Nishi Trading Limited this morning presented in their assistance to the Honourable Minister of Education and Training. This donation consists of vegetable seed packets, nursery trays and potting mix with additional pamphlets containing the correct instructions for students to plant these seeds. Anasi Falicano with more.
The presentation of the donation from Nishi Trading to the Honourable Minister of Education and Training, Dr. Ana Taufelungaki. The assistance included vegetable seed packets, nursery trays and potting mixes for planting. This presentation of the donation aims at encouraging the primary school students to favor this type of outdoor activity, which is planting of vegetables and fruits gardens in their schoolyard. The Honourable Minister of Education, Dr. Anatau Fe'ulungaki, thanked the Nishi Trading for their assistance because it will help encourage young students to healthy living. This donation received this morning is unexpected and it will be a huge help for the ministry. We do have a planting vegetable program implemented for primary schools, and after receiving the donation today, has helped us with our policies for the schools to grow papaya and banana trees for the students to consume this healthy food. There are some schools who are abiding with the policy and some schools that do not, but with this donation, it will help us, especially the students, to lead a healthy life and also be productive in school. Meanwhile, the marketing manager of Nishi Trading Limited, Losaline Fonoa, said the cost for this donation is estimated at 3,000 paanga. Some of the goods we have donated today are instruction sheets to direct students on how to grow or plant these seeds. This is part of the project of the committee, and we wish to do a follow-up on this project to ensure it is effective. We are expecting that the primary students to harvest their vegetables around October. Meanwhile, Ministry of Education says more than 90 primary schools will benefit from this assistance. The staff of the Ministry of Education has begun its distribution of these vegetable seed packets in the primary schools in Nuku'alofa area and later on to be distributed to Vava'o. However, the Nishi Trading Limited is collaboration with the Ministry of Education to Mayanima Committee to continue this project to the outer islands. Anasif Legano for Television Tonga News.
It is important to support and push for students to lead a healthy lifestyle because it is a good way of preventing non-communicable diseases or NCDs. A new health clinic has been established in Dailulu College to help the Ministry of Health and its drive of pushing students to healthy living. Anasi Falikano reports.
Ministry of Health personnel will serve students in this new clinic. This project is funded by the Ministry of Health in cooperation with Tonga Health. Speaking to Television Tonga News, a health officer Siweli Finau says the aim of this program is to promote healthy living to students. The most vital part of this program is pushing the student toward healthier lifestyle, which can help minimize the rise of non-communicable diseases (NCD) to students. This project also targets students between age of 13 to 19 because those are ages that faces social problems. Meanwhile, a teacher from Dailulu College Fononga Finau says this will help improve students' health. We want to see an improvement in the health of the student in the secondary school. The Ministry of Health also hope that all secondary schools in Tonga will participate in this project, which is to establish a different clinic inside the school compounds to assist students.
3 men have been fined at the magistrate court this morning to pay 5,000 paanga after they were alleged for possession of sea cucumbers and illegal using of 11 gas bottles for fishing. The trio were namely Tui Finau, Scotty Teisina, and Kefanga Finau of the eastern village of Wafa were sentenced for the possession of 78 sea cucumbers, which are of high value. They were found at the village of Whanga on June 11th. Chief Magistrate Silas Murphy says that each man will pay 1,000 paanga because of their illegal harvesting of sea cucumbers while its harvesting season has been closed. Meanwhile, 2 of the trio have also been ordered to pay an additional amount of 1,000 paanga each for using of 11 gas bottle for illegal fishing. And that's the local news. Pacific is up next.